right, Mike Pesh, we are back, my man.
What's up, Ron?
Good. All is well, my friend. All is well. The wife is happy. There was a successful Mother's Day on Sunday. Kids were happy. All is good. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's good. Had a good weekend, busy. Worked all day Saturday and then had a nice Mother's Day Sunday.
Very good.
Weather turned out to be nice. We just barbecued and stuff.
Yeah, weather was awesome. We believe it or not, so soccer, like, I don't know why they did this. My daughter's soccer photos were planned on Mother's Day, which
They must
was
have not realized.
the stupidest thing I've ever seen anybody do, like completely retarded. And then she had a game after that. So 9 o'clock in the morning, photos, and then 11 o'clock game.
And you did both.
We did both.
I mean, it's not, I don't mind that. Like, my kids had soccer too, but it is stupid. But it's not, the whole family's together. You're outside, so whatever. It's not terrible.
No, it wasn't bad. And then, after that, we headed home, and it's going to become a Mother's Day tradition. I know it is. The wife goes out and she buys all kinds of vegetables, and she does like a vegetable fruit garden thing. And she plants it with the kids. It's cute. They all dig in there. They all get dirty, dirt all over them.
And they leave it alone once
so
it's planted?
She plants it, but then the problem is you get like you get all the animals out there start eating all the whatever you're planting. So you have to hang my wife used to hang she got the idea from her cousin. It's like these snakes. So it's like this beautiful vegetable garden, and then it's surrounded by what looks like predators so that nothing else eats it.
Yeah.
But she gets some good food off there, man. She gets like tomatoes. She'll get strawberries. Zucchini, like the whole deal. Like
Yeah.
And she, during the course of the summer and the year, she picks what she picks, and she brings it in, she cooks it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
Living off the land.
My wife, Sam, same thing. I mean, it's not like a Mother's Day tradition, but we have the garden. But she planted some stuff, I don't know, a week or so ago, but my kids they dig it up. It's not like you have to put a fake snake to ward off the predators.
How do you ward off the kids?
We would have to build a fence around it, which isn't happening.
Barbed wire?
Yeah, like they'll be in the backyard, especially the baby. The baby he'll just go in there and tear it up. But the other two too. The other two they're not intending to destroy it. They think they're just like, helping, but they're digging in there. And
that's so crazy.
So it doesn't work.
Yeah, so then we did that. We were kicking the soccer ball around the backyard and playing sports, frisbee. It was a good day, man. It was a good day. The grass looks nice and green. Everything's coming in nice.
I hate grass. Talking about real estate, I think something that most homeowners don't realize, and then once you own a home, is just lawn maintenance. There might be some people out there who enjoy it, but I think the majority of people hate grass.
Did you seed your grass, or did you put down sod?
So this year, initially it was all sod, and normally I seed it every year, like spring and fall. This year I didn't do anything so people hate grass because it's nonstop and it's impossible to maintain. It's never perfect. But because we built the deck in the backyard, so all the wood and everything was laying on it. And plus, since I'm on the water, everything had settled a little bit. Like it always seeps in a little bit. So I just left it.
When you did the bulkheading, you mean?
Yeah, right. And then so next year what I'll do is I'll just dump some dirt to regrade it, level it all out, and I'll just resod it because it's starting over. Like, I mean, trying to fix what's there at this point. We have grass, it's fine, but it's not all the same color. It grows at different rates. It annoys me because it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So I'll just resod it in a year.
So I'm a big grass guy too. If my grass isn't right, I get aggravated. And in Dix Hills, the soil is not dirt. Or sand, I should say, like it is in the South Shore. It's clay. So I've been in like this intense 4-year battle with my lawn trying to get it to grow. I've purchased probably at this point 100 bags of seed going back to when I renovated the house, and 100 bags of seed, like I'd buy like 5. I'd buy, let's say, 10 bags in the spring, in the spring, and then 10 more bags in the fall. Because supposedly, growing grass is like best to do in the fall, or like right now when it's a little cool out.
Yes,
it's actually not good to do in the heat. So and it's been nuts. I didn't even do it this year, and now my grass actually looks the best. But it's probably the culmination of all those years.
Yeah, you did it in the fall.
But in the dead center of my grass, when it's just direct sunlight all day long, it's tough to grow it there.
Right, you have to water it a lot.
You get bald spots. Like if I put in a pool, I might actually put a pool in dead center in the middle of my yard.
So you don't have to.
Just because I know I'm never going to be able to grow grass there.
That'll look the nicest too. Would it take away from like the yard at all in terms of space?
That's the problem. So I'm worried about it cutting it up too much. So
yeah, you don't want to cut it up.
It would be something that.
But it's a nice focal point.
Yeah, like looking out straight out the back window.
Right.
Would be cool. Construction going on at my house. It is nearing an end, but not quite. And I highly recommend nobody ever do construction while living through the project. And I will never do it again. Ever. Waking up every morning to guys in your house at 7:30, 8 o'clock is not fun.
Yeah, they're there that early.
They make messes of everything. You lose things. I've been missing articles of clothing now for months. I don't know where they are. But we're nearing the end of the project, and it's actually everything's coming out nice. It all looks good, but there's a problem with people getting their hands on materials.
Right.
The roofer and the siding guy. I mean, I gave him a deposit, but he's not going to start the siding for probably a month and a half. That's how long it's going to take to get the siding.
And that's if there's no more delays.
It's a weird time.
So when does this? I mean, I don't see this shortage of inventory in the housing market ending anytime soon.
So here's what I don't understand: is it's like, whether you were living in the city, in a big in a city, area, or like an urban area, or if you were living in the suburbs, every person accounts for a certain amount of plywood. Every person accounts for a certain amount of sheetrock, right? Like everyone's living in a space.
Right.
So why didn't these shortages happen before? I mean, they say that it's because everyone's doing work to their house, and it's because everyone's moving out to the suburbs. But at the same time, everybody at one time lived in the city, and you needed materials to build city buildings and accommodate the same amount of people. So I just don't get it.
I think part of it has to do with the fact that COVID disrupted manufacturing and supply chains. So a manufacturing warehouse, for lumber, you normally might have had 50 people in there, but because of COVID, you can only have 25 in. Right. And then the supply chains also, just the shipping of it all.
Right.
COVID disrupted everything. And, you hear like this has nothing to do with COVID, but, that ship stuck in the canal, that backed things up, then it backs up ports. And so I think it was just that, it's just a whole domino effect of everything was affected by COVID.
Yeah,
it just slowed everything down.
Maybe. I mean, it just seems crazy to me.
Well, I think also you have more people, right? So people would normally spend money on going out to eat, planning vacations, doing things. They weren't doing any of that. So everyone's got this extra money, and what's everyone doing with it? Everyone's putting the extra money into their house.
That could be
because
true
they're
too.
Spending more time at home, and they have the money and they have nothing else to do.
My roofer is telling me that like he had quoted jobs in high-end neighborhoods to redo the roofing, the gutters, the siding, windows at like $125,000. And he quoted them like back in September. And now they're coming back at like $175,000.
Really?
Yeah. Like 8 months later.
It's crazy.
That's insane.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. It's got to be a little bit of price gouging too. I mean, these people have to be taking advantage of it.
Right.
To some degree.
They could be.
Yeah.
They could be.
Yeah.
That gets us to, I don't know if you want to some of the new stuff, but what was it, 26% of homes are, of home sales are new constructions?
Something along those lines. We'll get to that. But real quick before we do, I actually had anything interesting happen to you in the last week when it pertains to real estate, or no?
Interesting? No.
So I had one of the most interesting things happen to me that I've ever dealt with. So I get called to a house in Oyster Bay. The owner tells me, go take a look at it. Tell me what it's worth. I'm curious. I bought it back in 2015. Wonder if I could turn a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I go and knock on the door, and a kid answers the door. Like, he looked like he was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he's like, hey, man. He's like, you know, the landlord told me to expect you, you know, come and take a look. So I walk in the house, and there's like neon lighting all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it looked like a frat house, but it was at least a $2 million house in Oyster Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. And it looked to be honest with you, semi-trashed. So
Right.
I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So then we start touring the house, and, you know, we're walking through the house, and, you know, I'm just chit-chatting with the guy who looks like he's 18 years old. And I say, hey, man, what do you do? He goes, oh, I'm a YouTube streamer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a gamer and a streamer. So I go, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, and you rent here? He goes, no, you don't understand. He goes, there's this company called G Fuel,
Mm-hmm.
which G Fuel apparently stands for Gamer Fuel.
Yep.
It's an energy drink for gamers to stay
Mm-hmm.
up and keep gaming, okay? They rented the house
Mm-hmm.
for a stupid amount of money from the landlord. Then G Fuel essentially pays these kids to live in each room
Right.
and game and stream. And they get a percentage of the stream.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the most insane thing you've ever heard of?
So you forget this.
But this is like what's happening all over LA. Like, if we were selling houses in LA,
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of shit we'd be walking into all day long.
It's a cool concept. You forget this happened though. The house, remember the title guy's house in Amityville?
Yes.
Who did the rental deal?
So that's the first thing that came to mind. Was he a G Fuel guy?
That was, yes. I think it was the same company. The guy is G Fuel in like Bayshore or Babylon or something.
Yes.
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 Same company. And the kids came in. They're like, we're going to retrofit like they're like, we're going to like rewire the house. Like, we'll pay for it. We're going to put in the outlets that have the USB and everything and all the hookup. Same situation.
Wow. Dude, that's crazy. It's crazy because in California, like, I don't know, like, I know you definitely never did, but
Mm-hmm.
do you know who Logan Paul is and Jake Paul?
Well, Jake Paul, because he's boxing. Is he going to box
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather?
So Jake Paul and Logan Paul
Mm-hmm.
are YouTube influencers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they are. And what they did was they started out in like Ohio. I think that's where they're from, is Ohio. And they started doing like videos on do you remember Vine?
Yeah, I mean, I've
Vine.
heard of it. But
It was Vine. So Vine
it's like
had
a
like
7-second video.
7-second videos, yes. So it started out on Vine. They got famous, and Logan went to California. Then Jake became like a Disney kid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the same guy who's beating up UFC fighters was a Disney kid. And then they started the concept, I believe, of going and renting out a mansion
Mm-hmm.
and sticking influencers in it and making a piece of what they all make.
It's a great business model. Think
It
about it.
is.
This guy,
It's
he's
not-
buying a house. Is he renting it, or does he own the house? He owns the
There's
house.
the landlord, and then G Fuel is the one who signs the lease. And then
So G Fuel doesn't own it.
G Fuel doesn't own it. They lease the property, and they put these kids in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we were going in each room, and the kid was telling me, he was like, okay, so this room, this guy's from Ontario, Canada. He's got 1 million followers. This room, this guy's from Wisconsin, and he's got 500,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays this video game. And like everyone plays their own video game. Like,
Right.
Like one guy, like the guy I was dealing with he plays Call of Duty. Like, dude, it's a fucking totally different world. And it's funny because I was listening to Dave Portnoy on a podcast not too long ago. He and Ben Shapiro were talking
Mm-hmm.
about it. And they were talking about how, like, apparently people are tuning into traditional sports less and less. Like basketball's viewership's going down.
Yeah.
If you notice too, like Hollywood's viewership is going down.
Right.
Why? Because years ago, people watched movies and movies were released and they were marketed, and you'd go to the movies and you'd watch the movies. But today, especially like the younger generations than us, they don't give a shit about Hollywood. They don't care about Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie and fucking. They don't give a shit. They care about Jake Paul and Logan Paul on YouTube. That's why they're pulling fucking pay-per-view numbers the way they're pulling.
Why? He's beating the shit out of UFC fighters.
He beat up Ben Askren. Fucking
and
one
like a UFC.
So
is it a boxing match or UFC
boxing
fight?
Boxing match.
So he's boxing.
He took the worst. By the way, UFC is the fastest growing sport, MMA. He took a UFC fighter who was all grappling. Like the guy basically was an ex-wrestler. His striking sucked, and all he would do is just basically take people down and ground and pound them. And he boxed them. So he took him.
Why'd the UFC guy agree to that?
Because he's retired, and he just didn't give a shit. And it was actually his biggest payday of his entire fight career.
So is this guy an actual professional boxer?
Jake?
Yeah.
They're starting to like make him want to, like his brother's fighting Floyd Mayweather.
Well, that's so
his
great,
brother's fighting
Floyd
Mayweather.
Ass,
Floyd Mayweather says, "I'll fight both of you the same night.
Yeah,
I'll fight your brother, and then I'll fight you."
Yes, because he's
a real boxer.
Arguably the best professional boxer of all time.
Yes, but Floyd's 150 pounds. Logan's like 210 and 6'4".
It doesn't matter. That's the difference between.
I'm curious to see how that actually works out.
It's like.
But if he won't
like
hit
an
him.
Amateur basketball player challenging Michael Jordan.
I know, but Michael Jordan's also a big guy. Okay, there's no chance he knocks Floyd out.
He won't even hit him. He won't even land a single punch.
He probably won't hit him, but he's 6'4".
Doesn't matter.
Like 210, and Floyd is 150.
Floyd.
And Floyd's
do you think
like,
Floyd can hurt him? So if Floyd Mayweather punches him, he's gonna get hurt.
Floyd knows how
to punch. Obviously,
Floyd's gonna knock him out. But there is a chance. I'm telling you.
Or he might break every single rib. He might he can do nothing but hit him in the body.
Floyd will hit you 10 times before you even know you got hit.
Right.
That's the problem with Floyd.
Right.
And if you try to hit Floyd, you're not going to hit him. You're never going to get a clean shot.
It's not Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather where it's a heavyweight versus,
But dude, this is what's happening now. So
it's so great.
So now, and they're literally setting pay-per-view records.
Because everyone
They sold 1.5 pay-per-views.
Because you're combining the old school and the new school.
You're combining the UFC fan base in that scenario, the UFC fan base and the YouTube fan base. The average viewer of that was probably really young, and they sold a shitload of tickets. But anyway, back to the whole Dave Portnoy thing. So what's happening is statistics are showing that people are tuning into basketball. Like basketball this past year had a record low viewership rating. Baseball and all these other sports, because kids aren't paying as much attention to those things anymore.
Right.
And they think that what's going to happen is all that attention is being transferred to these kids who are on Twitch, which is why Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, started investing in esports.
Right.
Because the younger generation is going to pay more attention to that. Like we may be watching like baseball one day, like real baseball.
Right.
And they might be watching a kid play Call of Duty, and they might think we're like old farts. It might be like how we looked at like our parents, like, oh, you listen to the Beatles? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I could never watch a video game.
I think that's where things are going, though.
I don't know.
I mean,
it's kind of sad.
Is it? Or is it just how things are changing?
Yeah, because kids should be out running around. Forget about, it's just, it's better and healthier for you to run around and sit and play a video game.
I don't disagree with that. But I think that their whole culture is totally different than ours. Like you and I woke up on a Friday, like we tuned in like TGIF on Fridays at 7:00 at night, and we waited for a show that would air once a week, and we'd watch it.
Right.
And then there wouldn't be another episode until the next week.
Now you have access whenever you want.
Now it's just like, so their attention is flowing to these different mediums that like no one could get a handle on,
Yeah.
And it's making Hollywood less and less relevant, and it's making mainstream sports less and less relevant because half the people who would have been interested in sports, their attention is being diverted into something different now. It's just a different world. Different world. It's interesting though. It's interesting to see. But that was my big interesting thing that happened to me this weekend when it comes to real estate. It was I don't think. I mean, we ran into those guys twice already. It'd be interesting to see. I wonder how many houses they have.
I mean, it's got to be growing in popularity.
It's got to be, right?
I'm sure they have a ton of houses. I don't understand why they don't buy the house though.
Because it gets destroyed. I was there. I saw it.
But if you could find a good deal, I don't know. It's almost then you're having a real estate business and
they rent it for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's profitable for that 2-year lease.
Right.
That I saw, dude. They had like cats in the house, and the cat like must have fucking went crazy and just shredded this beautiful wallpaper, and it looked like it was very expensive wallpaper.
Right.
So like
and they pay good rents. I remember going by the Amityville house, the rent was really high. It was a good rent.
It's very profitable. The streaming is very profitable.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
They just need a place for them to do it.
Yeah. It might not be a bad model. I just don't know that. I don't know.
And they advertise that the G Fuel.
Everything is G Fuel. So that's their sponsor. So when the streamer is up and they're talking and they're streaming, they might pause every now and then and say, "Hey, buy G Fuel. I drink G Fuel. It keeps me up. Keeps me gaming."
So I'm just picturing these kids just sitting there. So they're just sitting there, like probably up like 20 hours a day, just drinking G Fuel, playing video games.
Yeah, dude. And they're from all over the country. All over the country.
Yeah.
They're dressed in like sweatpants, like they hadn't left the house all day.
I wonder why do it on Long Island then. Why not do it in a place where housing's cheaper?
Because G Fuel's on Long Island.
Right.
I think it's headed up in Long Island. I called Paul afterwards. Paul said it. He thinks
I remember it was Babylon or Bayshore or something.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's head into news. This is a big one. So this last week, and we've been talking about this quite a bit, judge vacates CDC's eviction ban, but appeal delays action. So a U.S. District Court judge for the District of Columbia ruled Wednesday that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's nationwide eviction moratorium is unlawful, striking down the ban and delivering relief to housing providers who haven't been able to collect rent from the struggling tenants for more than a year. But the struggle for housing providers isn't over. The U.S. Department of Justice immediately filed an appeal, and on Wednesday night, the D.C. District Court issued a temporary stay, meaning the CDC eviction moratorium remains in place across the country pending another hearing. The court will eventually have a hearing in the next 2 weeks on the DOJ's motion, and the temporary stay will remain in effect at least until the decision is issued. I mean, there's so much more to get into with this, and I could tell you what the judges wrote, but immediate thoughts.
So, my immediate thought is not, I have a couple thoughts. My immediate thought is not real estate related. My immediate thought is that I hope that it does not get overturned, and meaning that the appeal does not get overturned, and that the federal judge's decision of it being illegal for the CDC to actually put an eviction moratorium in place, I hope that does not get overturned, because it's just from like a constitutional standpoint, to give a branch of the government that much power and like a legal precedent that they can just claim, oh, we're in a state of emergency, we're in a pandemic, and just make crazy laws like that have such sweeping effects and such domino effects on the entire population and economy. I mean, it's just un-American. It's more like a dictator type ship thing than.
Trump's actually the one who did it, but I don't think he intended it to go on this long. So it says, after the CARES Act, which Congress passed in March 2020, right when the pandemic hit, established an eviction moratorium that ended last July, former President Donald Trump granted the CDC the authority to enforce an eviction moratorium under the public health powers in September of 2020. The moratorium has been extended twice and was due to expire at the end of June after President Joe Biden authorized the latest extension. Tenants' rights advocates had been pushing for a third extension Senior policy representatives on the commercial issues for the National Association of Realtors told the Single Family Investment Management Committee on Tuesday during the legislative meetings. And it says, in her 20-page ruling, the U.S. District Judge Friedrich of the District of Columbia said, it is the role of the political branches, not the courts, to assess the merits of policy measures designed to combat the spread of disease. Even during a global pandemic, the question of the court is a narrow one. Does the Public Health Service Act grant the CDC the legal authority to impose a nationwide eviction moratorium? It does not. So here's the other thing, though. Their argument is, if we kicked everyone out and there was more homeless, COVID would spread.
Yeah, which is, in my opinion, I'm no expert, it's a bullshit argument. But that's the exact role of the courts.
Well, look at India, though. India's poor as shit. Right, and you got people living in huts, and they apparently have like the worst scenario. I mean, I'm not saying that's the reason why that's happening.
In LA, I mean, it's like the homeless situation in LA is out of control.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, if you really cared about that, if you really cared about the effect it's going to have on COVID, you'd be taking care of the homeless situation in LA. Just as an example.
Yeah.
It's that's the whole point of the courts, though. Is the whole checks and balance system. The whole point of the judicial branch is if the political branch, right, the legislative branch makes something that's unlawful, unconstitutional, is for them to check it.
Right.
But on a separate note, just from like a housing standpoint, I guess what is that going to do? If it gets upheld, then yeah, I mean that could change, because we're talking about before the shortage of inventory. When's it going to change? There's no end in sight. Then yeah, that could swing things in the other direction, because there's a lot of homes in forbearance, and if they don't have those protections anymore, I'd have to imagine landlords and even banks and foreclosures are going to start eviction and foreclosure proceedings immediately.
Yeah.
Also, that's where I disagree. Trump, it's easy to say looking back, hindsight's 20/20, but Trump should have never. That's where he was definitely, and it was probably very hard to at the time. He should have never gave that power. He should have never agreed to 2 weeks to slow the spread. That was all. It's like you give an inch, they take a mile. You can't do that. And like I said, it was probably immensely hard at the time, but that's your elected president to be, the best of the best, and to be able to make those right decisions.
Yep.
Not to make, you're held to a higher standard than just the average person. So
it says NAR has always maintained that the best solution for all parties was rental assistance to cover the rent, taxes, and utility bills for tenants struggling during the pandemic. NAR President Charlie Oppler said in a statement on Wednesday, this decision prevents two crises, one for the tenants and one for the mom-and-pop housing providers, who do not have a reprieve from their bills.
Right.
With rental assistance secured, the economy growing, and unemployment rates falling, there is no need to continue a blanket nationwide eviction ban. With this safety net firmly in place, the market needs a return to normalcy and stability. Oppler said that our attention should now turn to the swift and efficient implementation of rental assistance, which I agree with. Someone needs to, the governments need, but the problem is, someone needs to take care of the mom and pop, landlords.
It's a simple solution, right? So the government's printed how many trillions of dollars from this pandemic, right?
None of it's gone to
So instead of giving like money to the Smithsonian or all these bullshit things you hear it going, listen, and putting eviction moratoriums in place, if you need rental assistance, we're printing trillions of dollars, apply for it, and we'll give it to you. That would be money well spent. That would be a smart thing to do. But that's not what's happening. The trillions are being wasted. Not all of it, but a lot of it's being wasted. And then you put eviction moratoriums in place. You're just creating this huge problem that is going to have to be dealt with, which there is no good solution at this point. Well, except probably print more trillions of dollars.
Yes. So the only way to make it, I've thought about this. So, and I've said this before, I think, on this podcast. So you can either do a quick, swift change of law and start evicting people quickly and immediately, and that'll turn into, that'll happen too fast, and it'll create a lot of problems. It'll create a lot of problems in the real estate market. You'll see prices crash. You'll see there'll be a homeless issue.
Right. You have a lot of people with nowhere to live.
And that I don't think is something that will ever happen or anyone will ever allow.
No, it's political suicide too.
Right, exactly. So what they'll do, what the smart thing to do is or would be to obviously have some kind of government bailout where you slowly land this plane, meaning like take what could happen in a 6-month time frame and somehow string it out over a few years. And by a few years, I mean like 4 or 5 years. Somehow provide assistance to people who need it, and home builders to get people into other homes, and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, that's, yeah, so the money we're printing, start actually using it wisely and giving it directly to people who need the help.
Yes. I think that's the only way to do it. Otherwise, you're just going to see like a massive tidal wave of issues.
It's at this point, I don't see how you don't end up at a point where there's some type of massive fallout effect from the bad policy.
I think that's going to be the linchpin of a change in the market. Right now, the market's the way it is. I don't think it's ever going to change until that inventory hits the market. You agree?
I don't know about I mean, at some point it's going to change. If that's what changes it, maybe. But something might happen first. I don't know what that would be. I don't see an end. I guess the only end in sight that I see now would be that. I don't see any other practical end in sight.
Yeah. Okay. On to the next.
Go ahead.
This is interesting. Never thought I'd hear brokerages doing this. This is out of the box. Mm-hmm. But apparently it's something that happened once before. So as the industry, and this is talking about real estate brokerages, is finding itself up against a tight inventory and the market is so competitive, brokerages are offering incentives for clients to work with them. Realogy, which is one of the biggest real estate brokerages in the country, their brands include Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Better Homes and Gardens, Sotheby's, and others. Mm-hmm. They hope to attract more prospects with a new client incentive for customers who might be interested in a vaxication, they're calling this, as well as a home. Combining interest in a new home with many people's desires for an overdue vacation, Realogy launched its Miles from Home Realty Rewards program with American Airlines. The Miles from Home program offers members of American Airlines, their loyalty program, an opportunity to earn $2,000 advantage miles for 2,000 AA advantage miles for every $10,000 of the sale or purchase price of a home. That's a lot of miles.
Yes, yeah.
2,000 miles?
For every 10,000.
So if you let's say you were to buy a $10 million home.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Well, what about a $500,000 home?
I know.
It's 10,000 miles for every 100,000.
That's crazy, though.
You buy a $500,000 home, you get 50,000 miles.
Yes.
Which is a lot of miles.
So they go on to say the Miles program is a relaunch of a program that Realogy offered in 1996. We are strategically relaunching the Miles from Home Realty Rewards program with American Airlines to make the most of consumers' growing appetite for travel and to connect even more highly interested home buyers and sellers with Realogy affiliated brokers and agents. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to do. And then other brokerages are trying their incentives directly to the community. So, for example, Realty One, which isn't on Long Island, but we've talked about them. They launched a program this year. It's called One Tree, One World, pledging to plant one tree for every home bought or sold by its real estate professionals in 2021. The goal is to plant 111,111 trees.
But that's no buyer or seller is going to use them because they're going to plant the tree.
No, but they will for Miles.
Right.
That's for sure.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, dude, I know people who've rearranged all their bills because of points.
Yeah. Well, yes. But I mean, you're not going to, first of all, that's for buyers or sellers too?
I think it's for both.
Both. I mean, I guess if you're a seller, like sellers are interviewing brokers. Mm-hmm. So if you're interviewing brokers, and that's a difference maker. For buyers, you're just not interviewing brokers. It's whoever you're working with. And once you're working with someone, I don't think you'd leave because you're getting some miles. Maybe you would. I don't know. It goes back to there's more agents than houses. It goes back to the low inventory.
I know, but
fierce competition.
Imagine what if your sales pitch becomes, hey, it's Ron from Berkshire Hathaway. If you sell your house with me,
right,
I will fly you for free and your whole family to Florida.
You'll get 50,000 miles.
50,000 miles. You could take trips to Europe if you want.
So stupid. But all right, I mean,
stupid,
I get it.
But dude, especially like people are going to be nickeling and diming, right? I mean, you got to think.
Just give people cash back.
Yeah.
Cash is king.
That's true. Cash is king. All right. Where employees are most likely to return to work. We've had lots of extensive conversations about what's going to happen with office space and repurposing it and all, right?
Uh-huh.
So more workers are finally returning to the office about a year after the COVID-19 pandemic shifted many companies to a remote workforce. Still, the return has been slow as companies continue to weigh considerations of just how workers will return, a decision that could greatly impact demand in the commercial office sector. The 10 largest cities, the number one of employee office space visits reached 26% of the pre-pandemic level for the week ending April 21st. According to the data from Castle Systems, a technology provider that tracks
which is horrible if you
swipe
think
key
about
cars.
it. The number one is 26% of what they were at. I mean, we're a year out from the initial lockdowns.
Dallas and other Texas metro area workers are the most likely to be heading to the office in person.
And that's what, 26%?
Dallas is 41.2%.
Okay. But even Texas.
Houston is 39.3. Austin is 38.8.
So you have places that are no mask mandates. They're fully open. For tax and political reasons, people are moving to Texas and Florida like crazy, and even Texas is only
so that's
40%.
Texas. Philadelphia 26.6%.
Right.
Once you get out of Texas, it drops. For it to drop 12% once you get out of Texas is a lot.
Yeah. So that just goes to show you this is not going to be at 100% anytime soon.
How crazy is that though? The swipe key. By the way, this data is being gathered by the swipe key companies. So like this company,
a lot of people are swiping into the office.
No one's swiping in.
Is that even legal? It's like an invasion of privacy.
Yeah, like, this person came to work today. This person didn't. That's pretty crazy. Los Angeles, 23.6%. Washington, D.C., 22.4%. Chicago, 21.2%. San Jose, 17.4%.
What's New York City?
New York is 15.8%. And San Francisco.
That's crazy. New York's the worst.
No, San Francisco, 14.2%.
That's crazy. New York is fucked.
Yep.
So stupid.
But then it says office lease rates are starting to show an uptick, according to the National Office Report. April 2021, published by the Commercial Edge, nationally office rents averaged $38.67 per square foot in March, a 1.4% increase compared to the year ago when the COVID-19 pandemic struck the U.S.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's just so stupid. You would think they would say, okay, these decisions were bad. The lockdowns are bad. All these rules are bad. It's going to open up, let people get back to work, let companies do what they want.
So here it says, still as the vaccine rollout continues, employees have been slow to return in person to offices. 66% of employers expect to implement some form of hybrid work model, but 44% of corporate leaders surveyed anticipate employees will still work in the office the majority of the work week, according to a new survey of 103 corporate leaders.
That's because people are hesitant, though. Most people are not hesitant because of COVID. They're hesitant because it's just better. If I have the option of taking a 55-minute train ride, then a subway or whatever into New York City, getting to the office, or working from home, they're just choosing to work from home. It's nothing to do with COVID.
Yeah, only 12% of the corporate leaders surveyed by Vocon expect their employees to work at the office full-time 5 days a week after the pandemic.
Right.
So now, it's interesting, those numbers. I mean, the bottom line is this, though. Even if, let's just say, hypothetically, 25% of the workforce doesn't return to the office, that's a lot of space that's going to hit the market.
Yeah, but right now, 75% is not returning to the office.
Right. But let's just say 3 years down the road.
So we're a year out. You have vaccines. Things are opening up again. You only have 25%. And why is it going to become more? What's going to get better?
You got a point there. But let's just say it does get better. Let's just say 40% of the current office space pre-pandemic gets eliminated and turned into what?
We talked about this last week.
I know. Yeah. That's going to be interesting to see what they do with that space. I think
it'll get repurposed.
They talk about it in this article. Here's another article. It says the suburban office could blur the lines of residential and commercial.
Because it's not what's going to happen with that space. It's right now the space is still at a price, right? So it's just the price is not where the market's at. So if they're asking $50 a square foot, right? It's the price isn't there. Once it drops to $5 a square foot,
so here's what's happening.
It'll get bought.
So it's interesting. Remote work is likely going to continue in some form, but that doesn't mean workers never want to head into an office again. Investors are betting on a post-pandemic surge in interest in workspaces located in suburban neighborhoods.
Right.
That's interesting. To get ahead of what they foresee as a trend, they're eyeing suburban residences and empty retail with the thought of turning them into smaller office spaces that could be rented out. So like we work in neighborhoods. Like imagine, you want to go to the office, that house is an office space for people. It's like
they'll have a problem. I mean, that's
zoning issues.
Yeah, neighbors are not going to like that.
Yeah.
Also, it doesn't answer the question of what's going to happen to all the space in the city, which is what's going to happen is they're going to have to lower the rents to where it's like, listen, for $10 a square foot, I'll rent it and do something with it.
Some startups and property management owners are offering flexible office spaces in suburbs for remote workers who need a break from working from home. They're touting furnished office space that can be booked by the day or month. For example, one such startup called Daybase is turning retail spaces into furnished offices that could be rented out in suburban locations. The company doesn't want to replace corporate headquarters, but rather to create a network of smaller offices. Interesting. So it's basically going to be like a bunch of WeWorks, right? Wasn't that what WeWork did, or what was that other one?
There's a few of them.
There was, it was definitely WeWork, and then there was
I forget the name of them.
I forget the other one. But that would be interesting to see how that pops up around.
Those businesses are probably bankrupt, like WeWork and stuff, because they were running on a ton of like venture capital money, expecting to become profitable, and then this happened. They're fucked.
Yeah, but their model works just in suburban neighborhoods.
Right, but they own. They had to pay.
They had to sign leases.
Yeah, they signed leases, and they owned buildings that are now worthless.
That's fucking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I don't know. I think that's going to add insult to injury, right? I mean, you've got all these people in forbearance. All that inventory is going to hit the market. Then you have all this extra office space that's not necessary.
Well, it's going to be a shift. The cities are going to become deserted, and the suburbs are going to get built up. So, right in the city, you have a high supply of office space. On Long Island, there's no homes for sale. It's just a shift.
Yeah,
it's a shift in where.
Is that permanent though? Does that send our housing prices through the roof?
I think it's going to last for a long time. It's going to last for a long time. I don't see why it would change. Why would it change? Who wants to commute back to the city?
No one I know.
Especially the government's still offering unemployment benefits.
But then, think about it. How does that affect, the Long Island Railroad, right? They've got a lot of pension obligations.
That's been run so poorly.
Yeah, but it everything's connected, right? So, the world Long Island has been functioning that people wake up, they all go, they get on the train.
Right.
They all pay their monthly fare, and they have the train, right? You don't need to pay the fare anymore. And those pension obligations are tremendous. I mean,
they probably fall into the taxpayers.
I don't know. And then, people travel to Manhattan. Well, when you travel to Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan is built around everyone commuting to the city, going out for lunch, buying things, going back into the building, then coming back out, having dinners. All the restaurants, delis, bar owners in that area, they've got to be closed up by now.
Well, that's the bigger problem. That's the 8 million people who are normally in the city using all of its resources and taking part in commerce in the city. They're no longer there. That's a huge fall effect.
But now how does that change? How does that come out here is the question. Because those same people that were in the city are now scattered
spending money here.
Spending money out here.
Right. I'd like the whole railroad thing. How many people actually have, if worst case, lost their pension? Like how much is that?
It's going to take a hit. How about New York? How about New York City?
Was it enough to affect the overall economy?
How about New York City's pension obligations?
Right.
I mean, everything. When that shifts, there's a problem with the municipalities because they're not collecting the same taxes. It's going to be interesting. Another article. There seems to be an article every week discussing how we are not in a bubble.
Which is how you know we're in a bubble.
How you know we're in a bubble. But this says the U.S. housing market is on a hot streak with double-digit annual gains in some home prices, bidding wars, and surging buyer demand. That type of soaring housing market is prompting more bubble fears in some corners, but economists say that the housing market isn't getting overinflated. We have strong conviction that we are not experiencing a bubble in U.S. housing.
What's to give the reason? Let's hear it.
This is a Morgan Stanley strategist wrote in a note to clients this week.
Okay, explain why.
I'm going into it. Lawrence Yun, chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, agrees. And he told Axios last month, this is not a bubble. It is simply a lack of supply. The rapid rise of prices may be concerning to home shoppers. However, the median selling price for a home is up $35,000 compared to a year ago, which is the fastest pace increase since 2006. But this isn't 2006. Housing inventories are low. Credit remains tight, and lenders aren't issuing risky loans at rates at the rates that they did back then. Product risk, such as from mortgages with introductory periods, teaser rates, or balloon payments, comprised about 40% of the mortgage market back between 2004 and 2006. More recently, these factors are now only at 2% of the mortgage market, according to Morgan Stanley. Also, the housing market has a record low number of homes available for sale. At the end of March, there were 1.07 million homes for sale, according to NAR data. For comparison, during the housing bubble of July 2007, there were more than 4 times that, 4 million homes available for sale. So the last housing market, that last crash in 08-09 was really due to, it sounds like, lending practices.
Well, a bubble's what? A bubble's when, tell me if you disagree with this definition, but a bubble's when prices are inflated and the bubble pops and then prices deflate, right?
Yes, no? But what they're saying is that's not going to happen this time.
So what happens when inventory changes?
Then it will then it should happen. But that's why if the inventory changes abruptly, the bubble will pop. If it does not change abruptly, then it won't pop.
Well, prices are still going to come down then.
Yes.
So bubbles when something pops. It completely deflates.
According to this, though, 40% of the loans in America were fraudulent loans, cockamamie loans with like introductory rates or adjustable rates that would fly up, and housing payments would double overnight. Right. In this scenario, that's not the case.
No, it makes sense. I mean, most buyers who are winning bids are putting a lot down.
Yeah,
right?
It's going to be.
But you got Willis and you got Will, who's getting like buyers' houses with 3.5% down, like that.
That's Will. That's not the offer. That's Will. Will's getting that done.
Right. So that's not indicative of what's happening in the overall market.
Yes, which we should probably bring Will in here and let him just speak.
Right.
Newly built homes make up 26% of inventory. So more than a quarter, 25.7% of single-family homes for sale during the first quarter were new construction homes this year. Building homes has become more attractive and profitable during the pandemic due to record low mortgage rates and red-hot homebuyer demand. At the same time, many homeowners have opted to stay put and refinance or remodel their existing homes instead of selling them, allowing for new constructions to take up a larger portion of the market. Prices are rising for new homes too. The increase in lumber prices over the past year has added 35. We discussed that.
So this is where I think the problem gets worse, not better. So you have new home sales made up 26% of the market, right? But new homes, like I know most builders are finding it hard to find their next project because there's just nothing out there. And even if they can find something, the numbers don't make sense between the price they have to purchase it for and the price of supplies. So if new home build starts to decline and new home sales are making up 26% of the market, inventory just gets lower, just gets tougher.
Yep. I mean, and if you look at inventory on Long Island, in our MLS, the market statistics, it keeps going down. It was like 2.5 months, then it was 2 months. I think now it's at like 1.5 months.
Well, we're in a time of year where more buyers are out. So it makes sense. There's more buyers looking to buy right now than in the winter, right? In the winter.
Yes.
But it's not going to change, right? If inventory hasn't picked up this spring, it's not going to change through the summer. It's not going to change through the fall. It's not going to change through next winter. So we're looking at the same market dynamics existing now, at least until spring of 2022.
Let me throw a little. Is it part inflation as well? Because right now, I mean, look at the Dow Jones. Dow Jones just hit 35,000. You can't tell me that's because things are good. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
No, it's definitely inflation.
So is inflation sending the prices up, and are the houses actually fairly priced based on what's happening with inflation?
So I think it's supply demand. I think prices going up because of supply demand. But is that inflation too? I don't know.
Well, I mean, look at it, right? I mean, you've got. I think that we talked about the conforming limit is 800. And like 27,000.
Well, that's inflation.
That's crazy, though.
Right. That's going.
Just a few years ago, when I bought my Massapequa house, it was 417.
Right. We were talking about this last week. Gas prices are up. Housing prices are up. Lumber prices are up. You go to the grocery store, prices are up. So it's definitely inflation, right? Is that? I'm not an economist.
Has it hit houses though? Has it hit houses, or is that supply and demand, or a combination of both?
I don't think inflation. I think the housing prices are right now reflective of just the supply-demand dynamics.
If that's the case, then houses are technically for sale. Because when inflation hits the houses, forget it.
The only thing that's going to change housing prices would be supply-demand change or rates change. But otherwise, it doesn't look like rates going to change. It doesn't look like supply-demand is going to change, and inflation hasn't hit. So then, it could be a good time to buy.
They can never, ever, in my opinion, raise interest rates at this point.
Well, eventually you'll have to. It gets to a point where you can't. Shit hits the fan. But then, then to your point, an investment into real estate could be that's a great hedge against inflation because you lock in a 30-year rate at 3%. Your payment stays the same, and the cost of your house, once inflation hits, is going to skyrocket.
Yep.
So it's a great hedge against inflation.
And so will rents. But,
no, rents will go up.
Well, because salaries aren't going to go up, so can you raise rents? That's what I'm thinking.
I don't know.
Although salaries haven't changed much in...
Taxes is the other thing.
Taxes is the other thing.
Because they're at the point... Most places don't have taxes that... people complain about them, makes things tough to afford. But I think in Nassau County on Long Island, they're at the point where it actually could have a significant impact on what people can afford. It's crazy.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. Totally off topic, and then we'll close out the podcast. What's your go-to Chinese food order?
General Chow's chicken. But now I order everything. General Chow's. Well, if I had to pick, General Chow's pork fried rice, egg roll. But I like to add in lo mein. I like boneless spare ribs.
So I realized the other day I don't have like a good Chinese food order meal.
What do you get?
I normally just get a large wonton soup and 2 egg rolls.
That's a little weird.
It's weird.
It's like a Chinaman.
It's weird. And I'm thinking I'm 34 years old. I don't have a go-to Chinese order.
Right.
So I was upset with myself. So I did a little recon, and I had some beef lo mein.
Beef lo mein's good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's my go-to now.
So I went to college with a guy who's the goalie on the soccer team. We ordered Chinese one night, and this fucking guy, so I got my go-to order. It's probably the same as I just mentioned. And he got chicken lo mein or beef lo mein in the white container, and he ate it out of the container. and
it just looked fantastic.
He made it look so appetizing. Ever since then, I love lo mein, and I eat it. I put it on a plate.
Beef lo mein. I could have that.
You eat it right out of the container?
Right out of the container.
Yeah.
But I had the large, so it was a plastic container.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
Do you order Chinese food a lot?
Nope.
It's a good order because you get a lot of food.
Cheap.
Not too much money. Yes.
Yes. So that's my new thing.
I'm going to take you.
I mean, you have a stellar order there. You knew exactly what you
Here's what we're going to do.
It didn't even take a second.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go, well, yeah, I mean, that's my order since I'm a kid. We're going to go take the wife and kids. There's a Chinese restaurant and take you guys. We're going to go.
Okay.
We're going to order it's called a poo-poo platter. So it's like an authentic Chinese restaurant. It's been around since my dad was a kid. It's on Jerusalem Ave in Wantaw.
Okay.
I forget Kwang Ming is the name.
Interesting thing about Chinese places, never seen them in my life.
Oh my God, you're gonna love it. You'll actually love it. You walk in, it's all older Chinese people are the waiters. It's got Chinese decorations. It's like a legitimate.
You feel like you're in.
They give you, like, you have a nice hot pot of green tea. They give you, like, on the house. They have duck sauce and spicy mustard with, like, these fried noodles, just like there instead of bread. And it's just an authentic Chinese restaurant, and the food is really good. But you get what's called for the kids a poo-poo platter.
Uh-huh.
And it comes out. There's, like, like the blue fire, the blue fire, like you'd almost, like if you had a catering event, they put, you know what I mean, the tin that heats it. So it's that, but it's like a little wooden grill with all the food around it, like 5-6 different kinds of meats.
Uh-huh.
And the kids, it's good. The kids poke it and they hold it over the fire just to heat it up, and they eat
Nice.
it. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
I actually went. It's funny. I used to go as a kid. I have a memory of going there as a kid, like 8-9 years old, and I just went recently. I took my kids, like maybe a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you mentioned it, would love it.
We gotta go.
You would love it.
We gotta go.
What made you think of that?
Because I got into an argument with Fish over it. I
What is his order?
I sent him a text, and I was like, "Hey man, I don't have a go-to Chinese order." Just curious.
He yelled at you
because he's the food guy.
Right.
He just yelled at me, and then I yelled at him back, and he said, "I don't know, lo mein." So then I called him up, and I said, "Can I get some lo mein?" And they said, "You want beef lo mein, chicken lo mein?" And I said,
"Beef."
Beef.
Yeah.
And then there you go.
Beef lo mein's good. Yeah.
Beef lo mein was born. All right, guys. Well, on that, we're gonna end this podcast. You want to give us a call, ring 516-888-9711. Website is www.pl-team.com. And we will see you guys next time.